Rather than open up today's meeting with a prayer, I'm going to ask for a moment of silence and then the reading of a scripture, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. The County Council was made aware that our permits and inspection supervisor, Mr. Brent Gardner, lost his daughter in a tragic car accident. Of course, our heart and our prayers go out to Mr. Gardner and his family at this horrible incident, and our prayers and thoughts are with them as they go through their time of recovery and mourning. Also, in the Lower Shore, we want to acknowledge the passing of Wycomico County Executive, Mr. Bob Culver. Mr. Culver fought a long and courageous fight with liver cancer. He was a county councilman, then elevated to Wycomico County Executive. And our thoughts and our prayers go out to his family and to our fellow legislators there in Wycomico County as they deal with his passing. Now last, I'll ask for a moment of silence for the passing of John Lewis, who was considered the conscience of the Congress. Mr. Lewis devoted his life to civil rights. Born a son of sharecroppers, he led many marches and sit-ins through the 60s for equality and justice. Lewis was the youngest speaker at the 1963 March on Washington, and to my knowledge, he was the last surviving speaker of that event. He was awarded the Medal of Freedom in 2011 by President Obama. And of course, Mr. Lewis will also be remembered for the beating he received in 1965 as he and some 600 people crossed the Emmett Pettus Bridge in a peaceful demonstration for voting rights. So we'll ask that you give a moment of silence and send your prayers and your thoughts out to these families as they deal with the loss of their loved ones. And then I'll read a short scripture and we'll follow with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm coming from the book of Psalms, 34th chapter, and it reads, I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. My soul shall make its boast in the Lord. The humble shall hear of it and be glad. O magnify the Lord with me, and let us exalt his name together. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Mr. President, just for the record, Councilwoman Price is calling in for the meeting. Ms. Price, are you on the phone?
I'm here.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, before we go into the agenda, just want to make everyone aware that the council, by supermajority vote, elected to close the council chambers for the public. So everyone has to join us by video or by calling in. And for those of you who are listening at home, let me go ahead and give you that number when it comes time for the public meeting, so you can have that number to call in. I'll give it again before the public meeting, but let me give it to you now in case you want to jot it down. For the public meeting, you want to dial 833-491-0327. That is 833-491-0327.
Mr. President, I'm sorry to interrupt. People are already having trouble hearing with masks. Can you just pull the microphone, all the council members? If you pull the microphone closer to you, especially for the phone numbers, which are important. Thank you.
I am going to put my mask down for the reading of this. I want to make sure people get it. For the public meeting, public hearing, you want to dial 833-491-0327. I will give that number again when we get down to the public hearing for Resolution 291. So I'll give that number again, but just in case you're at home and you want to jot that down, that's 833-491-0327 is that number. Council, you do have your agenda. The Chair would ask if there's any addition, deletion, or correction to the agenda.
Mr. Pack, at this time, I'd like to amend the agenda to add a letter in support for Trooper 6, the helicopter that is based out of Talbot County, that is now up for discussion of whether it will stay or not.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, to amend the agenda for a letter of consideration in support of Trooper 6 staying here at the Easton Airport. I know that this matter has been sent back for study, and I don't know how long that's going to take. You know, it may be done in a matter of months or weeks. So, Madam Secretary, please call your roll.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
And Madam Secretary, we'll take that on right after this disbursements, okay? Council, any other addition, deletion, or correction to the agenda? Hearing none, the Chair moves that the agenda is accepted with unanimous consent. We also have disbursements from July the 28th. We had a chance, you should have had a chance to speak with Finance Officer about those disbursements. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to those statements? Hearing none, the Chair moves that they also be accepted with unanimous consent. Now, concerning the letter of consideration for Trooper 6, I know we've seen many emails about this back and forth. Again, to my knowledge, it has been sent back up for study. Again, don't know how long that will take. But we can certainly consider sending a letter now or maybe wait until after. Mr. Stamp, do you have any, I saw you sneak into the room, so I'm going to call you forward if you don't mind. Do you have any additional information as far as when that decision may come forth regarding Trooper 6 or when that group will even assemble themselves for study?
So there is a basing study that's currently underway for the state police to determine the best locations to base helicopters moving forward. And I don't believe a determination has been made as to which aircraft is going to be sold and which section is going to be closed. So it is an appropriate time to share your concerns about maintaining the aviation program.
Mr. Stamp, I apologize. You're going to need to get closer to the microphone.
I'm sorry? Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what I know at this point in time.
Okay, but the study is underway as we speak?
There is a basing study underway as we speak, yes.
Okay, so yeah, let's probably get that letter in now and then. I didn't know the study had already begun. Okay, anything further?
Other than the fact that, you know, clearly Talbot County depends on the state police medevac program. On average, we transport about one patient a week. These are patients that are the most critical of critical, either injured or ill, to the trauma centers or specialty care referral centers across the state of Maryland, where it would be too time consuming to try to drive those patients. So not unlike the other mid-shore counties and frankly, you know, counties throughout the state of Maryland, in Talbot County we do depend on that aircraft and the other aircraft in the system quite a bit.
Right, and I know that I was contacted by Jack Wilson up in Queen Anne's County. I think they're considering also a letter of support. So,
I think I can speak for the men and women of our Emergency Medical Services Division that we want to try to maintain that resource here.
okay. And what I would ask is, once this vote is taken, perhaps you would help in the drafting of that letter.
I'd be glad to, sir.
Thank you. Anything further from council?
I have nothing additional to add. I think Director Stamp did a perfect job. Thank you.
Okay, Madam Secretary, please call your roll.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to move on to introduction of administrative resolution. This is an emergency resolution dealing with COVID-19. Yes.
Mr. Pack, give me 1 moment. Since I've lived this from home, I'm experiencing what the public experience and very difficult to hear. If you're not on top of
don't know if I can get any closer than what I am without sticking it in my mouth.
I could not hear Mr. Stamp at all,
Okay.
okay?
Then,
Reminder.
Mr. Hollis and Mrs. Moran, if anyone comes to the table, I don't think we're going to have too many other speakers this evening. We'll just direct them to get as close to the mic as possible. Mr. Park, I don't know, was there any way to elevate the volume any more than it already is, but if you can do that, sir, we'd appreciate that as well. So thank you, Mrs. Price, for letting us know that. We'll try to get as close as possible. I know we want to be safe and keep our mask on, but if you want to give comment, counsel, you might want to just pull it down and pull it back up. We're fairly distant here, but we want to make sure that people at home hear us and respond accordingly. So let me continue. We have introduction of administrative resolution. This resolution is dealing with the COVID-19 enforcement. We heard from Dr. Frida Wiley, our health officer, last week, and she made some recommendations and raised her concerns regarding positivity rates and the infection rate here in Talbot County. We know that the COVID-19 virus is definitely not going away. We do understand that many states have gone back to a shutdown, and some municipalities have gone into a shutdown mode. I think Baltimore City went back and closed all their bars and restaurants back on Friday. I think Anne Arundel County likewise did another shutdown of some of their public buildings. So we certainly don't want to move in that direction here. Our positivity rate has gone down from where it was last week, but yet and still we want to be mindful of what awaits us in fall and winter. That wasn't me. So, Madam Secretary, we would read the title of the resolution.
Emergency Resolution COVID-19 Enforcement, adopting certain requirements related to the operation of bars and restaurants in Talbot County, namely a prohibition on service and congregating in bar areas in order to prevent the spread of COVID-19, establishing certain limits on indoor and outdoor large gatherings, establishing civil monetary fines for violation of this emergency resolution, and authorizing the Talbot County Health Department and the Talbot County Office of Code Enforcement to enforce the requirements herein.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Dr. Wiley is with us, and also Director Stamp. I'm not going to bring you guys up together, but let me, Dr. Wiley, if you want to come forward first as we start to deliberate the introduction of the resolution. Is there anything further that you want to add? I do have some language that I want Council to consider, but we'll hear from you first. Do you have any of the numbers today you want to share? If not, we can.
And Dr. Wadley, I'm sorry, you're going to need to speak directly into the mic. You're welcome to remove your mask if you'd like. The public is having trouble.
Well, if they can hear me, I'll talk through the mask,
fine.
okay?
That's fine, you're comfortable.
The numbers are still going up statewide. They're fluctuating. If we had a couple of high ones, 1,128, down today to 640-something. On an average, it'll be 700 or more a day over the past week. So it is still increasing. Hospitalizations, they did a slow increase, and for the past 3 or 4 days, they've been within a 10-point range. Today was 544, so that's still a very slow uptick. Deaths, 12 new ones, but that's not really that much of an increase overall, a little higher than a day or two before. So what I think I'm saying is that, yes, we're seeing the cases go up. In Talbot County, we had the first good day for a long time, and I never thought I would say that 6 new cases was a good day, but it's better than 10 in what we've been having. Mm-hmm. Of course, the push has been on to test. Mm-hmm. We've got up to, in the state, 25,000 tests a day. Now, Talbot County has a percentage of population 18%. That's high among the counties. Our positivity rate has decreased to 3.8%. We were the highest a couple of weeks ago.
I saw that. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I went back and looked, and last week,
yes,
July the 21st.
you got to understand, the more you test,
yeah,
The more you test the worried well, or the more you just test and they don't have symptoms, and that's been one of the reasons the governor's been pushing to test, is to get those positivity rates down.
Well, I'm glad to see that. I think it was up as high as 6.1.
But keep in mind, the positivity rate and all is very good, but if you're having your cases go up at the same time, and they're being admitted to the hospital, we've gone from 2 in the hospital to 10 in the hospital. I don't think we've ever had more than 13, but that is an increase for us. So we're not just seeing asymptomatic, we're seeing people with symptoms. And as I said, today was a good day just with 6, but it's been on an average of 10. So we're not out of the woods yet. And our spread, we know there has been significant number in the Hispanic community for the past 2 or 3 days. We've actually seen some decrease in that. Hope that's a trend, but not sure. So that's sort of where we are now. If you look at the populations most impacted, right now we have over 25,000 cases in African American, while only about 18,000 something in white, and about 21,000 and a little over in Hispanic. Now there's about 14,000 that they do not have good data to know what race it is. But by any stretch, you can see with a smaller population, you have far more cases in populations of color. If you look at the death rate, just of taking the number of cases and then the number of deaths, you'll see that the white population has the highest death rate. Could be because there was so much early on in the nursing homes and the older population, and a lot of deaths there. The second with death rate is African American, and then the third, low, fairly low, and maybe it's due to a younger population being infected, but it is still significantly lower than the other two. So that's sort of how the pandemic is playing out in this state, and as you know what's happening in the other states, some of them are that opened before we did are already reaching surge capacity, and yet you'll find 1 or 2 along the way that have really done well with not a whole lot of explanation. So I'll start there with the numbers.
Thank you, Dr. Wiley. Okay, Council, we do have the resolution before us for introduction. The one thing that I would just ask for consideration on the resolution is when you're talking about the outdoor events, I had a long conversation with our planning officer around the definition of special outdoor events. It really wasn't clearly defined in the code as far as other than weddings, carnivals, and I believe it says, and then other outdoor events. So we were trying to find a way to quantify what those outdoor events are and how to establish what is and what is not an outdoor event. I know you gave us some numbers last time you were in here. I think it ranged between 15 and 50.
No, I really gave, and I want to be really clear on this because this is where everything gets mixed up. When you say what is safe, and then when you say what's a number, please recognize that when you're talking about a virus like COVID-19, there is no safe number. It's where you want to put the number to decrease the number that can be affected at one time. So the governor chose 10 when he shut down everything. Anne Arundel and a lot of the other counties have put 25 on indoor and 50 on outdoor. So those were numbers that were chosen. It doesn't mean that every indoor gathering of 25 is safe, and so the outdoor too, but
That's certainly-
That's just the numbers that's been chosen.
Yeah, that's certainly understandable. You still have to maintain the social distancing indoors. You still have to maintain
Exactly.
face masking indoors. And then, of course, the sanitation of those areas that the public comes in contact with, those countertops, tables, chairs, doors, and those things, I think also have to be done. But just focusing on the outdoor component of this gatherings, large gatherings on page number 4, where it talks about inserting a number for outdoor. I'm like you, Dr. Wiley. I was a bit uncomfortable to actually put a number in there because I did not know what that number should be. And in conversations that I had with the planning department, again, going back to defining what an outdoor event is, we looked at a couple of different things here that I want to bring out to council. And I think you all should have got a copy of this. Mary Kay sent it out earlier today. Right now in the ordinance it reads that the outdoor special events include but are not limited to carnivals, weddings, festivals, music, fairs, or concerts, educational, cultural events, or similar gatherings. So when we talk about how those outdoor events should be recognized, we were looking at whether or not certain things were in play. If there was entertainment being offered, paid entertainment, if there was admission being requested for a person to come onto the property, if there was food being provided through a caterers or food truck or other food service entity, if there were temporary restrooms that were being deployed at the site, and certainly if the event was open to the general public, it wasn't by invitation, but the general public was invited to attend. So we were looking at those things that kind of say that if you had an event that was more than 50 people, that is the number that we were looking at, and it had one of those 5 items, it was either a paid admission to get onto the grounds, they either had a contracted caterer service or food truck, or they had paid entertainment. If we had one of those 5 entities, then what we were going to look at is that was a quote-unquote special event. They would need a temporary use certificate. And in order to get to the number, you would let the planning officer in your office come down, look at the site, do a site visit, and then determine what the safe number could be. You could have a 10-acre property, and if they're going to do, a small concert, perhaps 150 people spread out would be reasonable on 10 acres. But I wanted that number to be determined based on a site visit and based on the nature of the event, and not just to plug in a number of 50 or 75. So
I know, but keep in mind, I'm not getting my email done to 7 o'clock at night. How much more time do I have to look at everybody that wants to have a party?
I don't know whether you got this email. I mean, council should have received it. You may have not received this email.
But it would still be on your workload to review the site plans and,
That's what I'm saying.
yeah,
Oh, you're referring to.
I don't have the time.
right.
We've got a pandemic, we've got contract tracing, we got testing to do, and to say I don't want to put a limit on it, fine and dandy, don't put a limit on it, but don't put the other in.
Say the last part again. I couldn't hear the last. Don't put a limit on it, but don't.
Speak louder.
I didn't hear your last comment.
said. They should put a limit on it.
Don't put a limit on it as far as the outdoor event?
You either put a limit on it and hold it without 3,000 exceptions that Frida can't approve. I'm tired of being people's mother to try to find the loophole to how they can have a party. If you don't want limits on it, don't put limits on it, but don't put it in that everybody can come to me and see if they can have a gathering. I don't have enough hours in the day to do that.
Right, and I didn't mean that your office would be the one to go down and do the site visit. I mean, the planning officer is there. We have co-compliance officers who can go down and do that. So it would not be laid at your doorstep to go down and do that visit.
See, See, we're already set up to do what we can do with the restaurants. That's set up with the licensing and all, has nothing to do with the legislation tonight. The liquor board, that's already set up, okay? If you're setting civil penalties for what,
Apologize.
if you're setting civil penalties for what the governor had a criminal citation for, then that's one thing. That's on the mask, okay? I understand that, and that's fine. On the bar, about not having, if you have a liquor license, you don't serve at a bar. Very concise, people can understand that. It's over, okay? But if you're gonna limit gatherings, define the gathering and put a limit, or don't do anything.
Okay.
Mr. Pack, I think Dr. Wiley is extremely telling us what we should and shouldn't do, and it's quite obvious we don't put a limit on it. We enact a civil penalty, and we call it a day.
If you don't put a limit on it, what are you applying the civil penalty to?
If it's an event of some sort, just like the Balloon Fest, we shut it down. We said no. And we didn't, and that's it.
Okay.
Mr. Pat,
Yes.
am I coming through clearly?
Yes.
Okay. So there have been 2 resolutions prepared, and one of them does exactly what Mr. Callahan has said, which is to not put limits other than what the governor has in place, and that we would give the tools in the toolbox for the civil penalties, because that is certainly better than criminal violations. So as we go forward, there are 2 resolutions that have been prepared, and I'm not sure what order you want to take that in.
Yes, the governor only covers 50% for indoor. There is no limit on outdoor activities, and that's where I was speaking to. I agree with you. I think the indoor activities, I would like to see us stay in step with the governor and just say do it as 50%, and there you go. But for an outdoor activity, you mentioned the Balloon Festival and those types of events that are done on private property, but they're inviting more than 50 people. You know, we need to find a way to determine what is an appropriate amount. And I understand what you're saying. You don't want to set a number, and I'm not saying we need to set a number, but you need to find a way to go down and the planning officer or the code enforcement officer meet with the property owner. What are you going to have? How big is your lot? Where are you going to put the bathrooms? Where are you going to put your parking? Are you going to have hand sanitation stations? Are you going to require masking? Those kind of questions, just to get a better idea of how they're going to keep people safe.
what happens is when people are planning these things, they have very good intentions. Everybody's going to wear a mask. Everybody's going to stay 6 feet apart. And then when they get the alcohol out and they've been there 2 hours, you don't see a mask or anything, okay? And so that's the difficulty of, and I grant you, I know the difficulty of defining which group you want to talk about. And I guess my question is, which group is immune to the virus? Maybe we could decide it that way, because nobody is.
Right. And I know that we got letters from some vendors who are planning outdoor weddings, and of course outdoor is better than indoor. And we need to find a way to, in my opinion, to see if those events can be done safely. And again, it's going to require somebody going down and meeting with the property owner and looking it over and making that determination. I
know a lot of the people have probably called you and told them how they've planned it, so their weddings are all very much in line with the governor's order. I might say that I get lots of calls on those same weddings, and they're not exactly according to the governor's order. No social distancing, no mask, and they're together for quite some time, okay? And yes, they're outdoors, that's better than indoors, but we've got quite a few indoor ones occurring too.
So, Mr.
Can I,
So this is for,
can I get a second?
Yes.
Okay. I think that an arbitrary number, we can't control what people do, like Dr. Wadley said, once they're together and they're on private property. So it's very difficult for us to enforce. You can say, okay, we can't have more than 75 people, but we're not going to sit there and watch the party or the wedding or whatever. And since the governor probably has even better data than we do, and he has not set an outdoor limit, I don't know that we should do that. It's unfortunate that when alcohol is involved, what people do, but there's nothing that we can really do to change what the behavior is once people are together.
Okay.
so
So,
I'll this is for introduction. So, any more comments before we?
Yeah, so-
we're not going to vote on this tonight, but just to make sure we are clear on what we're talking about.
so that's what I was going to make a motion that we could table this resolution for tonight and maybe come back with a COVID permit for an event that would never happen. And that should be the main point that everybody knows here. And Dr. Wadley, when we spoke the other day, I said, what's the magic number? For us to be safe, what is it? And you said 1. Groups of 2 spread this. So we need the public to be informed and aware of the dangers that are out there. I would, at this time, recommend tabling this piece of legislation and going ahead with Mrs. Price's. It's clean, clear. It addresses the civil violation that we wanted to address. It gives Dr. Wadley an additional tool in her toolbox while we try to figure out if there's a way to limit events and remind the public that the pandemic is still going on, and if you have a COVID wedding, you're going to have a COVID contact, most likely. And that.
Well, we don't have to introduce both of them. It doesn't have to be tabled. If it's not introduced, it just goes away. But before we finish, there is a clip that the governor, I think we have. Could we show that dealing with bars and restaurants?
Mr. Packett asked, for council information, Mr. Packett asked for a clip from the governor's last press conference.
I found once again that the Maryland Strong Roadback Recovery Plan was based on a flexible, community-based approach, which was requested by the county leaders and approved by our coronavirus recovery team. From the beginning of our recovery, we have given local governments the flexibility to take certain actions at their discretion, and we continue to do so. However, we're also continuing to press local leaders to actively and aggressively enforce the public health measures that remain in place, especially in the bars and restaurants across their counties. I want to commend Montgomery County for cracking down on a few businesses that were flagrantly violating those health orders. This issue is not a problem with our current regulations that are in place. It's more a matter of the lack of compliance on the part of a few and a lack of enforcement by those who have that responsibility. Bars and restaurants in Maryland have only ever been permitted to open for seated service only, with strict physical distancing and capacity restrictions. Customers must be seated at least 6 feet apart from other guests, and standing in bar areas is strictly prohibited statewide. As we reiterated to county officials last week, it is their sole responsibility to get their local health departments, their local liquor boards and inspectors, and necessary their local law enforcement agencies to all work together to ensure that residents and businesses in their individual jurisdictions are compliant with those regulations. I want to make it clear currently stable. We do not intend to suddenly close all of our small businesses and put all of those employees out of work because of a lack of enforcement, and we do not want to crush our economy.
Okay, thank you. So clearly, he was going over the same information he sent in his letter dated July the 14th regarding bars and restaurants. There should be no gathering, no service at those bars and restaurants, that everyone should be seated when they are served in those establishments. So I think he's crystal clear on that. I think we should be in lockstep with that. Again, he did put it in the letter he drafted out to all the counties to do that. The 50% falls into the other categories outside of bars and restaurants, as far as 50% indoor capacity. And that's also within one of his past directives. I would like to see us follow that as well. When it comes to the outdoor activities, again, that's where we're looking at what is the appropriate number for any outdoor large gathering. So with that being said, we do have two resolutions. The one, Council, you will see has some open blanks there that I believe Mr. Cooper Smith had drafted at the direction of, at the direction of Mr. Lesher. Mr. Lesher, do you want to speak to that at all before?
Well, we could put numbers in here, but are we going to move forward with the gatherings provision, or are we not? We can name numbers if it is desired to include that particular provision.
If you're asking me, I am not comfortable inserting numbers. I think that, again, I would go with the governor's 50% for indoor gatherings, and then for the outdoor gatherings, I would probably seek to amend whichever resolution that is introduced tonight to include some of the language that Ms. Verdery gave us regarding how to identify which of those would require an outdoor use certificate. Right now, it's for those weddings and carnivals, but what about those other activities where it's more than 50? How do we identify them so she can go out and determine what's the appropriate size of the event? So that I can add as an amendment later. I don't need to do that tonight.
I'm perfectly comfortable with an alternate approach here.
Okay. So let's take the first one. Council would ask for a show of hands and a verbal vote. Mrs. Price, for introduction of the first resolution. This has the blanks in it. Okay, that will be introduced by Mr. Lesher. Let me get my. And then we have a second resolution that Mrs. Price offered up. Again, some of the language is same, but she doesn't have any numbers there. The chair would ask who wants to introduce the second resolution. By Mr. Bavilio, Mr. Callahan, myself, and Mrs. Price. And so we'll...
Mr. Pack, for the record, could the secretary read the title of that second resolution into the record?
Yeah, I apologize. You're absolutely correct. So, because they are not, they're not the same. So, Madam Secretary, if you could read the second resolution offered by Mrs. Price. You read that title.
Emergency Resolution COVID-19 Enforcement requiring compliance with certain executive orders issued by Governor Hogan to prevent the spread of COVID-19, establishing civil monetary fines for violations of this emergency resolution, authorizing the Talbot County Health Department and the Talbot County Office of Code Enforcement to enforce the regulations herein, and recommending certain procedures for enforcement.
Okay, thank you, Madam Secretary. And we did have some discussion on this. Everyone's still good on their vote on that as read, I'm assuming? Mm-hmm. Okay, so both are introduced, and Dr. Watley, thank you so much. Again, we'll put these back on for vote on the 11th, I think is our next hearing, Madam Secretary? Okay.
So
And if any amendments-
this is not eligible for immediate action?
It is. I mean, if you wish to offer it up for vote, Mr. Lesher, the chair, yes, I do apologize. The chair would entertain a motion for either to go to vote this evening. I would ask for the second, as I will be offering an amendment to the second resolution to deal with the outside gathering portion, or either to both of them. Let me just say this. To yours or as well to the one that Mrs. Price, I will be offering those amendments. So I would ask that we not vote on this tonight. Let me offer my amendments for the council to read and then take those up on the 11th. Because yeah.
Do we want that tool in the toolbox for the civil penalty? That is the only thing that my resolution does. Would it be helpful for our enforcement officers to have that civil penalty tool as opposed to criminal? And we can always add and consider your amendment on the 11th?
Well, the civil penalties are indicated on page 2 of your resolution, Mrs. Price. I don't have any objection to those. Dr. Watley can issue her own fines.
If I can just take a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
I know I started this because I made recommendations for what I thought we needed in addition to what was going on for COVID-19. I felt I should go on record of telling you what the health officer thought, along with many other health officers of the state, as they sent 6 of the large metropolitan areas in. And there was 2 things about that. It was first, we need to enforce masks. We need to have civil penalties for it instead of a criminal penalty. And it was second, control the number of that can be in a gathering, indoor and outdoor. So, let me be very clear. If you're not ready for that, I'll withdraw those recommendations. I want it on record to what I thought, then I want it on record to what you thought. So if you're not ready to do that, fine and dandy. I'll withdraw that.
I don't think that's necessary. Again, the outdoor, as you indicated, how do we?
I just don't want it on record because of all that I've gotten about, she says we can't do this, she said, and trust me, you've used me for the bad guy. I don't mind being the bad guy, but I don't want my name on that legislation.
Your name is not on the legislation. As far as your name being on the agenda,
Well, I don't want it said that I
Yeah.
was for.
I understand.
Okay.
I did not add your name to the agenda. That was not my doing. If you're directing that towards me, your name is not on the legislation as introduced by the members of council. The civil penalty is incorporated in here for our co-compliance officers to issue. The only piece of this puzzle, and maybe it's my fault for not being ready this evening, is how we determine the outdoor gatherings.
And what's the exceptions?
And what are the exceptions?
Yes.
So that and that's all I'm asking council to basically wait and for me, because I don't have that language together. I did have conversation with Miss Verdery. I have the email, but I don't have it drafted by Mr. Cooper Smith to actually insert in. So I just would need a couple of days.
I don't think that's relevant. That positivity rate changes daily.
No,
What was 2 weeks?
This is not the positivity rate. This is dealing with the large gatherings. As far as how to determine the large gatherings and whether or not they would need that use certificate.
Okay.
Yes, not the positivity rate, no.
Just wanted to make those remarks.
Crystal clear, absolutely. So we have both introduced and,
Mr. President, maybe we want to rethink these 2 amendments and at this time just kill both of them and if you need to work on one, we come back with a clean one. That might be the best way to go, because as of right now, Dr. Wadley is told us what she thinks, and it's up to us. And right now, we're sort of all over the map a little bit on these two amendments. You're not ready, so I think we probably should just kill it for the time being and wait until we come back and have a clean one. If council is willing to.
That's still going to be next meeting.
Right, I understand. And you're going to work on one between now and
No,
next meeting.
again.
If I was.
The language that's introduced here, I don't have a problem with. The civil penalties, I do not have a problem with.
Okay.
The only thing that I will be asking council to consider is dealing with the outdoor, when she talked about.
The next meeting.
That's all. That's all. And I do apologize. I don't have that language ready tonight. I thought I was going to have the time to do it, but.
So wait,
the transport,
right.
that's $40, I just wouldn't have it ready.
Yeah, I got you. So all we're.
That's all, yeah.
So is council comfortable with just the civil penalty and that's it for the time
Yes,
being?
I am comfortable with that. After speaking with 3 large organizations in the community that have, let me see, one that has successfully run a large outdoor event that was approved, one facility that is operating, and another one that is trying to have outdoor events. The numbers of people that would attend the different events are completely different. And you're looking at farmland to a business to a venue. It was amazing to me to hear that some people are able to do things, and I'm not going to say safe because it's not safe, but there are ways that people can get out there and socially distance and still continue. That's going to be an incredibly difficult, especially over here on the shore. You know, you tell a farmer they don't have enough space and they have 1,000 acres, they're going to look at you a little funny. So,
All right, that's fine.
And that's precisely my point, is that when you talk about the temporary use certificate, you know, when you talk about those other events outside of weddings and carnivals, how do you determine that? And so, again, if you would just allow me to get the language together, you can insert it in, you'll have it before next week's vote to consider, and that way the compliance officers and code enforcement officers, when they go down to meet with the vendor, if it's a 10-acre lot and he's doing an outdoor event, they can meet with them and say, here, where are you going to put your porta pots, where are you going to put your parking, and then make a determination with them what that number is. Again, if you guys at the end of the day want to go with just no number or no oversight, I would be a bit reluctant to go with that. At the same token, I'm not comfortable putting an artificial number in of 50. I don't think that one size fits all.
Right.
and Mr. Pack, I would also recommend a fee schedule. As Dr. Wadley said, I can't, I hate to say that she's not here, but she has been incredibly helpful to me, and I've been able to get a hold of her, and I greatly appreciate her being part of the community, part of the discussion, and being available. But she's just one person, and I know she has been completely overwhelmed because she's been doing her job so well to try to keep the county open. I can understand her frustrations, but there should be a monetary cost in doing the event that's different due to COVID-19.
And that would be because they have to be a site visit?
There's just a lot of extra time spent.
I'm okay with that.
I would keep that in consideration.
Okay.
So, Mr. Fox,
Yes.
so I would propose that we go ahead and go forward with just the civil penalties so that we protect people from potentially being charged criminally, and we look at the gathering based on the site visit and the fee schedule, but we go ahead and put this tool in this evening if council desires.
Well, the criminal penalty is still in play, even with the civil penalty. Dr. Watley still has underneath the food beverage enforcement code. She still can go in and close the business down. They can still be cited underneath the governor's executive order, up to $5,000 or 1 year in prison. So that doesn't go away, even with the civil penalties. That just allows our officers to go in and cite them locally.
May I read the one section that's number 5, recommended procedure for enforcement. The first offense would be a warning. The second offense is the civil fine. The third offense states that if a violator holds a liquor license, the liquor board could suspend it and/or impose the civil fine. And the fourth offense states if a violator holds a food service license, the health officer or the health department could suspend that. No, it doesn't preclude criminal, but it puts a step-by-step procedure in place that I think gives businesses fair warning and lays it out step by step. It doesn't go immediately to the civil offense. It's steps 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right, I had made note in reference to that, but again, Dr. Wiley, at her discretion, does not have to wait for these steps to play out. She can, based on the Food Enforcement Code, go in and suspend without going through steps 1, 2, and 3. I understand that you have it in here, and it's fine to build it in, but I just want people to be crystal clear. She does have the authority to operate independently of this council.
Yeah,
Okay.
but she doesn't have any other tools, and I think she was asking for those, so hopefully this gives her some other opportunities to go through in a methodical way.
Well, Secretary Neal was very clear on the call that all his health officers, all 24 of his health officers do have the authority, do have the tool. And Secretary Neal was very clear about that. So she does have at her disposal, even today, this hour, the ability to do that. And Secretary Neal was very clear about that. But all I would ask council is that I'm fine with both amendments, and I just have some language dealing with those outdoor events that I would like to include in. And I will have that language ready by our next meeting on the 11th.
So Dr. Wadley asked for three things. The civil violation's one of them. If we pass Laura's amendment today, we could go ahead and give her one of the three things she asked for, and then we can come back and craft the legislation for the other two things that she's asking out of the other resolution.
I'm not following it.
But are you saying take?
I'm saying if we go ahead with Laura, with Mrs. Price's
Right.
Emergency resolution today, we give her, Dr. Wadley, one of the three things that she asked for.
But again, Mr. DeVillio, the outdoor, size of the outdoor event, I'm going to put in both of them. Because it has to be there for people, for the compliance officers to know what it is they're applying the warning to.
We can come back and do one that just has that.
But why would you pass it tonight?
Because then we give her-
I'm asking for a week just to add the language in.
Because we're immediately giving her the thing that she wanted, which was a civil violation, because she doesn't want to clog down the courts with a criminal violation for a restaurant that she's got a problem with.
And then you're going to have to go back and reintroduce the language next week?
No, yours is already offered, so we can go ahead and amend
Well, but-
yours. But this
No,
would
this-
go ahead and give
no.
her the civil violation, so that way, right now, she could go into the restaurants or food establishments that she has a problem with and give them a civil fine immediately. The newspaper is going to put out there that we've created legislation now with a warning, a civil violation, and then a potential for a license to be suspended. That message alone is going to tell restaurants in the community the county is cracking down and wants us to be safe. We're giving Dr. Wadley a tool that she's now able to give a civil violation opposed to a criminal violation, which I think anybody who's ever been given a speeding ticket would appreciate. And we're moving the other legislation along to give you the opportunity to craft that for the outdoor gatherings.
I would support that.
We're piecemealing it.
Yeah, well, I was, okay.
I will say, Mr. Pack, that I'm not comfortable with paragraph 5 under this second resolution, which puts a recommended procedure and how things should be handled with a first, second, third, and fourth offense. Paragraph 3 provides the enforcement officers with discretion. And I prefer the route of offering the enforcement officers that discretion in enforcement. I'm not sure that this paragraph 5 really adds, and I think it may detract.
It just says recommended procedure, so that businesses are aware of that. And they don't jump the gun, but it is just a recommendation.
Are you asking to strike section 5 of this resolution?
Well, I think really what I'm asking for is for us to offer the health officer what she's asked for. But if we go the second route and offer this and come back with an amendment in 2 weeks, I would prefer, if we go this alternate route, that we strike section 5.
Okay, Mr. Lesher is asking that we strike section 5, which is a recommended procedure dealing with the issuing of warnings and civil fines. He's drawing attention to the abatement order under section number 3, dealing with the monetary fines up to $1,000 for a violation. Any comment on that? No? Is there a second on his request to strike section 5 and go with section 3, which deals with the civil monetary fines? Okay. The motion to strike section 5 fails. The matter has been introduced. It is eligible for vote this evening. My amendments can be applied to Mr. Lesher's resolution just as easily, dealing with the outdoor events. I was going to apply it to both just to streamline the resolutions to make sure that we have just one clean document. Going to your point, Mr. Callahan, rather than having 2 documents to work off of, having one clean document I thought was better. But if it is the majority's decision to introduce, then I would yield. So the chair would ask that there's an introduction of the second resolution this evening. I'm sorry, it hasn't been introduced. I apologize. To move it to vote. It has already been.
That's what I thought you were going to.
Yeah,
You want to move it to vote?
Yeah,
Correct.
Yeah. It has already been introduced. To move it to vote.
Okay.
Is there a motion to move the second resolution to vote this evening?
So moved.
Second it.
Okay, moved by Mr. DeVillio and seconded by Mr. Callahan. Any further discussion on the second resolution? Not the first, but the second. Okay, hearing none, Madam Secretary, on the second resolution dealing with civil penalties, Madam, please call your roll.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Nay.
Okay. So that second resolution will go in effect. The first resolution entered by Mr. Lesher, we'll pick that up on our next meeting, and my amendments will be applied to that resolution. So we're at 7 o'clock. We are now scheduled for a public hearing. Are you ready on the phones? Okay. This is a public hearing on Resolution 290. This is a resolution prohibiting Madam Secretary, would you please read the title of the resolution?
Resolution number 290, a resolution prohibiting statues depicting persons, signs, or symbols associated with military action on Talbot County property and providing for the removal of the Talbot Boys statue while retaining the base of the monument.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Moran. I had offered this up to council's consideration 2 weeks ago. Since that time, in conversation with Mr. Lesher, we wanted to clean this up a bit, and I'll explain to council why and also to the public. The language that I had put in here dealing with persons, signs, and symbols of military action, in my conversation with members of the VFW, they were very concerned dealing with the Vietnam Monument, which currently sits on the courthouse lawn, whether or not that monument would come under this provision, this language. It certainly was not my intent at all that the Vietnam Monument would need to be removed. And therefore, to make the reading of it cleaner, Mr. Lesher and I would offer up the first amendment, which is basically striking out that language that you read there in the first part of the resolution. Mr. Lesher also offered up a second resolution striking the first whereas from this. This was dealing with the death of George Floyd, which took place on May the 25th. It was put in just to give a sense of reference to future readers as to what was happening in society at this time. It probably does not have any bearing on the totality of the resolution, which is the removal of the Talbot statue. So if you look at also on page 3, there's also some edits that have been made in this particular resolution. Again, just cleaning up some language so that it would not be confusing to persons dealing with the Vietnam Memorial and those kind of things. I did not want them to feel that the resolution at all was pertaining to them. And on the back page, again, that language is all cleaned up so that it just deals with the removal of the Talbot Boys Monument on the courthouse grounds. Mr. Cooper Smith, have I gone through all of the edits in that First Amendment?
Yes.
Mr. Lesher, any comment from you on that First Amendment?
Just for clarity's sake, the actionable part of this resolution with this amendment would say, first, the above recitals are incorporated as if fully set forth herein. That
You're going to have to lean a little bit closer on this. She's straining to hear you. Yeah.
The actionable parts. The first is that the above recitals are hereby incorporated as if fully set forth herein. That's all of the recitals above. We remove entirely the next section having to do with prohibition on certain statutes. We move on to what is now the number 2 of this resolution, removal of Talbot Boys. The entire Talbot Boys monument shall be removed from the Talbot County Courthouse grounds as soon as reasonably possible. Nothing more in that section. And section 3, the final section, draping of monument pending removal, effective immediately upon adoption of this resolution. The Talbot Boys monument shall be draped or covered so that the monument is out of public view pending removal of the monument from the courthouse grounds. As you, Mr. Pack, said in your summary, it significantly simplifies this by really taking the focus away from any principles about what statues should and should not be on courthouse grounds and narrows the focus strictly to the Talbot Boys monument itself and clarifies that we would remove under this not only the statue but the pedestal as well.
Thank you, Mr. Lesher. So that the public can comment on the amendment, I would ask for a show of hands to introduce the amendment to Resolution 290 at this time by Mr. Lesher and myself. Mrs. Price, on the amendment?
No.
Okay. So the amendment is introduced on Resolution 290, just for the public to be aware. Okay. And with that being said, let me get my paper in hand. We're now going to move into the resolution of 290. The amendment has been introduced. Callers, when you call in, please give us your name. You do not have to give us your address. You'll have 3 minutes, and Mr. Callahan, I'm going to ask you to have a hard clock tonight, a fast clock tonight, as I'm assuming you have a number of callers on the line. If you are speaking for a group or an organization, please indicate that. We will give you 5 minutes on the clock. When you get within 20 seconds, Mr. Callahan will give you a 20-second yield, so you know you're coming up to a hard stop.
So, Mr. President, just for the record, petitions were just submitted to the check-in station by the deputies. They've asked me to just put this in, so I'm going to give it to you just to make sure I've accomplished that. And you can continue on with the total.
Thank you. Did we have a sign-in sheet on the public hearing? We did not. Okay, just want to make sure we don't miss anyone. Mr. Hollis has just handed me a blue folder that contains a number of petitions. It looks to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 or so.
And Mr. Beck will circulate those to the council.
Okay. So I just want to make record that we have received those. They will be on the official record regarding Resolution 290. And it appears this is from, is there a group?
I did not have a name.
No, okay, this is not a group, okay. Okay, so we have those will be added, entered into the record.
Mr. Beck, did you say a 3 and a 5? A 3?
3 and 5.
3 and
Yeah,
5.
and a hard stop.
Okay.
And we'll take the first caller.
Okay, we have 12 callers queued. First caller is a Hannah.
Hannah?
You can begin.
Hi, my name is Hannah Surratt. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I strongly support removing the entire Talbot Boys monument and voting as soon as possible. Removing this monument does nothing to erase history, because statues are not how history is taught. No one's history class is considered solely of looking at statues.
Can you turn that down? Can you turn that down?
Hannah?
Yes.
I know you're reading from a prepared statement. If you wouldn't mind taking your time, we're going to give you the full 3 minutes. If we have to give you a couple of seconds extra, we'll do that. But please relax, take your time, and we want to make sure we get every word that you're saying, okay?
Okay.
Okay, go ahead and continue, please.
I strongly support removing the entire Talbot Boys monument and voting as soon as possible. Removing this monument does nothing to erase history, because statues are not how history is taught. No history classes consist solely of looking at statues, and that is simply a false argument. I'm sure if you created a display in historical society detailing Talbot County's true and complete history of the Civil War, including Talbot County Union soldiers, Talbot County's colored troops, and the 18 members of those colored troops who went on to found Unionville, we could all support that. What we do not support is a monument honoring or glorifying the Confederacy, which is what monuments on public grounds by nature do. I want it to be absolutely clear that the issue we are talking about today is not the erasure of history, but rather which parts of it we choose to glorify. Most agree that Frederick Douglass is a national hero. What is funny to me is that he's also a local hero that we place precious little value on. Yes, we have a monument to him, so what else? Do we honor his ideals? Do we honor what he stood for and dedicated his life to? The fact that his monument was restricted to be no taller than that of those who supported his enslavement, and that it is actually smaller, tells me no. The fact that requests for the removal of the Confederate monument that he is forced to stand next to have fallen on deaf ears for years tells me no. The fact that people still cannot keep maintaining this monument is an insult to people of color in Talbot County and an insult to the memory of Mr. Douglass, who was enslaved in this county of life and should absolutely not be forced to stand next to his oppressors in death tells me no, and it's worrisome and heartbreaking beyond expression. That Richmond, Virginia, the heart of the Confederacy, is the head of Talbot County, the birthplace of Frederick Douglass, on this issue is disgraceful. We cannot claim to honor him without honoring his ideals. We cannot claim that we listen to and value people of color and their allies in the county if we will not do this one small thing for them. It should not be controversial to say that the Confederacy and Talbot County's place in it deserves to be condemned, not honored, and deserves to be memorialized only for education in the museum. That it is most definitely this controversial shows that we as a community have immediate work to do. Our leaders need to step forward, not to compromise with those who still do not understand, but to help them to learn. If you did not attend the community reading of Mr. Douglas' 4th of July speech, I would encourage you to read it and then see if you can, in good faith, allow the Talbot Boys Monument to remain. Those who are saying this is no longer about George Floyd are in part correct, because it was never about George Floyd alone. It is about the bigger picture he has come to represent. The people of Talbot County have requested the denunciation of racism over the years many times in many ways. It is my request that this time you listen to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. If you have a prepared statement, can I hear me going out, everyone? We would ask that you, if you wouldn't mind, sending that statement in to us for the official record. I know some of you may have a prepared statement. It may be hard for our photographer to get every word. It may be somewhat difficult for council to get every word. So I would ask that if you have a prepared statement, would you please mind sending that in to us after this evening? I would also ask, please take your time. We want to make sure we get every word. We want to make sure that we get time to record it appropriately. So just slow down, take your time. We have plenty of time to hear from you all. So get comfortable. Next call.
Our next caller is Liz.
Liz.
Time begins.
Hi, my name is Liz. I live in Easton. I believe the Talbot Boys Monument, both statue and base, should be removed from the courthouse lawn. I heard someone who commented at a previous council meeting in favor of leaving the statue ask why, if we object to high schools and army bases named after Confederates into a Confederate monument on our courthouse lawn, then why is no one objecting to places like Yale being named for a slaveholder? It's very simple. Yale is a privately funded institution, and those who object to its name can choose not to fund or attend that college. Public schools and institutions which represent, serve, and are paid for by the general public are a different story. A monument to those who fought against the United States, who fought to be separated from the United States in order to be free to continue the institution of slavery, does not belong on the United States government property or on public land. If people want to preserve it for historical reasons, then place it where more of its history can be truly told in a museum. If some people feel it is a memorial to their ancestors, then place it where it more appropriately belongs, in the cemetery. And I might add that placing it in Easton's historic Spring Hill Cemetery might serve both purposes. I've also heard people argue that no one ever paid attention to the statue until the George Floyd protests. Yes, they did. You just wouldn't pay attention to them. For at least 10 years, people have been trying to have this monument to oppression and bigotry removed from a place that is supposed to be dedicated to equal representation and justice. They have offered compromise after compromise, all of which were shot down. After years of effort, they at least got approval for the addition of a monument to a true national hero and Talbot County native Frederick Douglass, but we're told it could not stand taller than the Talbot Boys statue. I'm ashamed of what that has said about where the sentiments of Talbot County truly lie, or at least what it has said about the sentiments of those in power in Talbot County. But there's also power in numbers, and there's a sizable and ever-growing contingency of Talbot County citizens who are more and more determined to for and with those for whom this monument has never been anything more than a glorification of their enslavement, oppression, and exclusion.
20 seconds.
If you won't listen this time to them, to us, on an issue that is relatively simple as this, it will be hard to have faith that the voices of the non-white population of Talbot County will ever be equally heard and valued. Please do not delay this any longer. It's time for those whose heritage and exclusionary version of history has had precedence for all these years.
Time.
It's time, Liz. Your time is up.
Other side of present.
3 minutes.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you for your comments. Again, if that's a prepared comment, if you wouldn't mind sending it in to us, we would appreciate the reading of it later. Next caller.
Our next caller is a Katie. Time begins.
Hi, my name is Katie Savant, and I am a white woman living in Easton with my husband and daughter. And I just wanted to say something short. So a community survey that that was done by Public Building Network shows that 63% of respondents said that racism is an issue in Talbot County. I believe that the Confederate monument supports and promotes a racist ideology, and I do not want racist values to be represented anywhere in Talbot County, let alone on the courthouse grounds. I believe that the entire monument needs to be taken down, and I encourage you all to vote on this tonight.
Thank you, Katie. Next caller.
Our next caller is Jasmine. Time begins.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. So my name is Jasmine, and I'm a resident of Talbot County. First and foremost, thank you all for listening and making this a priority, as it is a priority to the community. I wish this wasn't an issue that we had in the south of this land. A REFUND statue that symbolizes slavery, racism, and oppression wasn't considered to be a monument. A monument is defined as a statue, building, or other structure erected to commemorate a famous or notable person or event. To commemorate is to celebrate. How can we celebrate a statue that pains so many? Sisters of hate and division, which we are striving to steer away from. I can't see any real reason for keeping this standing in front of a court of law other than to keep that division alive and hinder progress towards a fair, unified, and just community. The existence of slavery is not anything for us to be proud of. It is a disgrace to this nation, and the presence of this statue sends a clear message to Black citizens that we don't matter. What our ancestors deserve doesn't matter, what we feel doesn't matter, and what we continue to face due to the systemic and institutional racism, the suspension of sometimes doesn't matter. While I hope that you will make the right decision to remove the statue in its entirety tonight, whether or not you do, we know that we matter, and we will no longer allow our voices to be suppressed. If you are committed to a better future for this county, prove it, because now is the time to decide where you stand and what kind of legacy you want to leave behind as leaders. It's up to you, and I pray that you take into great consideration and understand the weight of how you choose to act in this matter. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you. Next caller.
Excuse me. Hey, Preston.
Parker.
Oh, I'm sorry, Parker. They're having trouble, I don't know if you can, on TV.
What is that?
Not being able to hear. Yeah.
We have 16 more callers queued. Our next caller is a Rachel.
Okay.
And time begins.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi. Okay, cool. My name is Rachel Hamburger. I demand that they be taken down with the statute. To those of you who may think it does not personally affect the lives of our community, please take a step back and look at yourself in the mirror. Check your privilege. Although the removal of the Talbot statue is a small step in the right direction, retaining the base of the monument is as insulting and disrespectful as the statue itself. Retaining the base only continues to pay homage to Confederate soldiers and glorify the oppression and slavery that many people endured. To leave this monument less than 20 feet away from the statue of our very own Talbot County resident, Frederick Douglass, is a disgrace and embarrassment. How can we move forward if we continue to protect any part of a racist monument that deliberately goes against the values of our community? I urge that a vote is made tonight for the swift removal of the Talbot statue in its entirety, pedestal and base. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Rachel. And the next caller.
Our next caller is a David.
David, okay.
Time begins.
David?
Hello, David Montgomery. I believe you just invited me to speak.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Quicker than I thought it was going to be. My name is David Montgomery. I'm a resident of Talbot County, and I submitted a statement that gives the reasons behind my comments that I'll be giving tonight. So I'm trying to keep them short. I oppose removing the Talbot statue from the grounds of the Talbot County Courthouse or altering it in any way. There's no justification for Talbot County to be swept along with the national movement to remove, destroy, and demolish monuments that tell a story about our past as a nation. That movement is self-righteous, hypocritical, and uncaring about history, having destroyed monuments to great men like Dixon, Sarah, and Christopher Columbus, now coming after monuments to soldiers in Talbot County. That's the point I want to make, and that's the need. Monument is to soldiers in Talbot County, not to slavery, not to the Confederacy. If we want to take a stand about the identity politics down here in Country Park, preserving the Talbot voice is a good place to start. It's highly unlikely that the soldiers represented by the statute were fighting to defend the institution of slavery. The history of the Civil War in Maryland is considerably more complex than the detractors statute claims. There were honorable motives and a desire to end slavery and avoid conflict on both sides. Blanket statements that all soldiers fighting for the South were traitors defending slavery simply betray lack of historical knowledge. I oppose taking down any memorial of common soldiers. In fact, their service deserves respect no matter who they fought for. In the middle of the Civil War, soldiers on both sides showed disrespect to each other. For example, after the Battle of Paul's Hill at Gettysburg, Colonel Wallace of the Union 1st Maryland wrote, "The 1st Maryland Confederate Regiment met us and were cut up in pieces. We sorrowfully gathered up many of our old friends and acquaintances and had them carefully and tenderly cared for." After the Battle of Front Royal, where the 1st Maryland Regiment CSA was the winner, they did exactly the same thing. Those who believe they can give moral judgments of the Talbot voice today should reflect on the respect that Marylanders from both sides showed each other.
20 seconds.
They fought. It's my understanding that few surviving local veterans of the 1st Regiment CSA solicited donations to build the statue here in 1910.
10 seconds.
To gain the beloved recognition of their service that they had denied. The claim that its purpose was to intimidate blacks entering the courthouse appears to me to be a fabrication based on nothing more than the assumption that people...
Mr. Gilmer, you're going to have to, that your time is up. I really appreciate your calling in, and we really appreciate you talking to us.
Next caller?
Our next caller is a Benjamin.
Is it Benjamin?
Time begins.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Benjamin Rubin. I'm here from TRAC, President of the TRAC Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak again tonight. This will be my third time speaking on this really stressing issue. Just to recall the previous statement, soldiers of Talbot County were a part of the Confederate, yes, it is the Confederate States of America. Even if they didn't own slaves, they fought for slaves. Facts. There's now the point where this is embarrassing. And not just embarrassing for the council, but for every citizen of this county. We've fallen behind the rest of the state and country in a kept systematic racism running fluidly. Still and always, there is no room for racism and white supremacy ever. And this goes for every piece of monument and memorabilia, including the Talbot. The fact that we limited the First Amendment right to freedom of speech to true public hearing participants at last meeting, including the leader of the Talbot County NAACP, shows the level we go to defend white supremacy in the county. And in fact, go against the country itself. It is treason and betrayal of our own Constitution. This isn't history. This monument wasn't even put up for history. Its sole purpose was to highlight white supremacy in the Jim Crow era over 50 years after the Civil War ended. More than just a county, we have serious issues on the council today. Councilmember Price embodies how oppression stays constant throughout this county. She is not just systematically racist, but openly racist, and she needs to be removed from any elected position if we want to move forward, heal, and support the black and brown community with action. But it doesn't stop with Price. The other council members, including Mr. DeVillio, now proposing resolutions that included a piece of Confederacy joined with the Union soldiers, shows even deeper systematic racism ingrained in our council and our community. The council didn't even have passed diversity training. Think about that. There will never be a place to glorify slaveholders and people who fight for slavery. I demand on behalf of Black Lives Matter, ACLU, millions of people being daily in this county and country and world that we remove the entirety of the monument immediately and let Frederick Douglass be here to sit on the county courthouse on our fight against racial injustice. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next caller?
Our next caller is a Troy. Time begins.
So, like, I wanted Corey Jackson, I'm speaking on behalf of the race thing. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so basically, I'm here because I would like to demand that the public voice section be removed this entirely. I want the base and voice taken down, and I understand that there was a caller who just said that you know, the statute wasn't put there for fear. Let's be clear in the aspect of what the courthouse laws wants to use for. The courthouse laws were not ones used to have auctions for slavery. There is history where the KKK met on the courthouse lawns in the 1980s. The courthouse lawns also was a place where a man was almost rich. Okay, so the courthouse lawns itself has a very rich history for intimidation tactics for our black people in Talbot County. We can do better as a community to evaluate what systemic racism is. What diversity training will do would then help all the people in our community actually know what they need to be doing in order to make things better, to create change. We need to have a vote on this tonight, not in August, tonight. We need to make changes, not just in the symbolistic way, but in equity, in matters that will be able to change our education system, our health system, and be able to do something that we can see in future generations. So I hope that the council has to think of what legacy they want to leave, because this was voted on 5 years ago, and it was voted today. So I'm hoping that this council can be an asset to create real change. Thank you.
Thank you, caller.
Excuse me, Mr. President, but few people have reached out to me and still can't hear on TV, if that's anything you can do.
I'm riding the audio the best I can, but we're picking up the speakers with the table mics.
Are you?
So that's what the issue is, but next we'll try and work with getting integrated into the system.
Would it help that a few people turn these mics off?
Is there a way we can get kind of close to it?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Parker.
Okay, our next caller representing herself is a Jasmine. Time begins.
Hello, my name is Jasmine Gibson, and I'm a black woman here in Talbot County. I'm calling to demand the full removal of the Confederate monument on the courthouse lawn. If we are not a county that stands with racism, then we cannot allow the Confederate monument to remain any longer. I would like a vote to be made tonight.
Thank you, caller. Next caller?
Our next caller representing the ACLU of Maryland is Vikrant. Time begins.
I'm here on behalf of the ACLU now. Frederick Douglass said in his 1871 speech at the Arlington National Cemetery, "We are sometimes asked in the name of patriotism to forget the merits of this fearful struggle, and to remember with equal admiration those who struck at the nation's life and those who struck to save it, those who fought for slavery and those who fought for liberty and justice." These words by Douglass addressing which of our residents deserve celebration on public property and which do not seem especially apt today as the council debates the removal of the Talbot monument, which stands across the courtyard from that of the St. Abolitionists from Talbot County. The American Civil Liberties Union of Maryland shares substances that is those who fight for the aspirational American ideal of liberty, equality, and justice, not those who fight to maintain white supremacy who should be held up to public acclaim. That is why we strongly urge the council to remove the Talbot monument, both statue and base, from the county courthouse lawn, which is a particularly problematic place for it. Courthouses are the visual embodiment of the rule of law and the values of the community, reflecting the beliefs, priorities, and aspirations of the people. That is why the Confederate Society specifically chose to erect monuments at courthouses. They wanted to send a message to black people that the laws were not meant to protect them. The Talbot statue was erected in the same moment decades after the war, when statues would spring up all part of a coordinated effort to paint and better cause as heroic and just. It was a time when Jim Crow laws were firmly in place, respectable members of society participated in lynchings on the Eastern Shore, and the Ku Klux Klan began to resurge. Just as textbooks were rewritten to downplay the brutality of slavery and its centrality to the Constitution of the United States, these monuments were used to obscure the causes of the war beneath a blanket of nostalgia. In the wake of George Floyd's horrific killing by police, a resurgent Black Lives Matter movement is leading the charge, renewing the commitment and urgency felt by many Americans to act boldly for racial equity and reform. We have the opportunity to reshape our public memory and begin to move away from white supremacy in ways many Americans once thought were out of reach. The same is happening in Maryland. We think the Talbot is the last Confederate monument standing on state land. In June, a plaque with a Confederate flag was removed in the State House. Likewise, in Congo County, a sign honoring the Confederate general was taken down by county officials stating monuments such as this are offensive to many in the county. The Republican county executive said he hoped the act of taking down the sign would be a step on the path of healing. At last, the day of reckoning has come to these monuments twice. So too we hope it comes to Talbot. The ACLU of Maryland has been involved in this push since at least 2015, and we firmly believe that time to act in removing both statue and day is now. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go to the next caller, Mr. Durham, I've just been told for those listeners at home who may be having some difficulty in hearing us, what I've been told is that if you, and I do apologize, I did not give the phone number again at the beginning of the public hearing like I said I was going to do. So if you would dial in and listen through your phone and turn the TV down, I'm told that way you'll get a much clearer signal. So let me do what I said I was going to do initially. The dial-in number is 833-491-0327. And I'll repeat that. 833-491-0327. So go ahead and dial that number, listen in with us through your phone, put your phone speaker on, and then turn down your TV. Why don't we try that at home? Let's give everybody a minute or two to do that, and then we'll pick back up at our public meeting.
More queue.
Okay. Hopefully we gave you guys enough time to do that at home,
Okay,
and we'll pick back up.
You have 74 callers and 15 are queued to speak. Our next caller is Paul representing himself, and time begins.
Okay.
Yes, how do you do in Paul County? I'm from Paul County, and I currently live in Paul County. As a teenager, I saw that monument, and I also asked why. I didn't understand it. It piqued my curiosity. And I've heard studied about the history of the war in Talbot County and Maryland. So I'm also a veteran. I have the privilege of being an officer in the U.S. Marines. My first and foremost recommendation is that all citizens vote somehow in their voter secure poll is too important, and this process itself is extremely difficult. Now, I haven't said that, and I want to agree to reasons of white supremacy, prejudice, any foreign law, government oppression, and any person or people that we need to remove from society. Additionally, Confederate flag and symbols have also become racial symbols of hate. That is not the people of color, like in many areas also. But it is extremely apparent that debating this monument issues have exclusively been based on standard Confederate versus Union talking points. It's not by outside organizations. It is painful to operate with the vast majority of over no knowledge of society history that was most important to their owners at that time, and it should be important to us now, to tell the government against Maryland and their citizens. During the Civil War, Maryland experienced the greatest crushing of civil liberties ever conducted by a U.S. president against the people of a free state. Many attempt to justify these actions, and that means what was done there was unlawful, unconstitutional, and brutal. In April 1851, President Lincoln authorized the top commanders on bar Maryland cities to directly kill innocent men, women, and children as Maryland resisted. This could change attitudes government takes to defiance this mission. Next, the Second Amendment was attacked with the arrest of key militia commanders and confiscation of guns and munitions. The commander of the Second Amendment, Maryland Militia, Major General Tim Stillman, grandson of a great patriot of the same name from Talbot County. His command included men from Talbot, Carolina, Queen County, and his last order to his men.
Paul,
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Our stenographer, she is having a difficult time following you, and we want to make sure we get every bit of what you're saying for the record, because we think it's very important what you have to say to us. So if you wouldn't mind, sir, we stopped the clock, so I'm not taking any time away from you. If you wouldn't mind, sir, just slowing down a bit for us, let her be able to get your words. We want to make sure we get everything that you're saying, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you, Paul.
So Major General Tillman's last order to his men before he was arrested was that Maryland was being occupied against her will, and war was being waged against Maryland's institutions of government, and created his men to prepare to deploy to protect the citizens of Maryland. After that, there was a direct assault on Maryland's democracy with the arrest of members of the Maryland legislature, our U.S. congressmen, the Baltimore City Council, the Baltimore mayor, and the city chief. Personal freedoms were then curtailed with the declaration of martial law and occupation of federal forces. Habeas corpus was then suspended around federal forces to imprison anyone desired without trial. A Supreme Court justice ruled Lincoln absolutely unconstitutional, but Lincoln ignored that ruling. Around 14,000 Marylanders were arrested under the suspension of habeas corpus and imprisoned without trial. At one time, Fort McHenry held over 2,500 political prisoners. Our Talbot County judge, Judge Carmichael, was pistol-whipped and drugged from the Easton courthouse and imprisoned for his attempts to hold constitutional rights of Talbot citizens. Then followed an attack on the First Amendment. Some newspapers were shut down. All were censored, and many editors imprisoned to silence their voices. The editor of the Easton Star was imprisoned for years, held without trial. Maryland's history during the U.S. Civil War is unique from that of any other state, either Union or Confederate. And Talbot County is a unique and important facet of that history. This is the history we need to remember, and from which we need to learn. Many who understand this history think it's ridiculous that men from Talbot County risk their lives so the South Carolina slave system will be protected. Particularly Richard Lincoln himself, his only warning at that time of Union, not abolition, and that the U.S. and Maryland Constitution were protecting slavery when these men rose. The overwhelming historical evidence, along with the recent unearthment of General Ted Stillman's last order for his men was arrest, overwhelming support for these men rose, not for slavery, but because their homeland was being unlawfully occupied and oppressed, because their democracy and constitutional liberties had been unlawfully taken, and because their militia commander told them before his arrest that war was being waged against democracy. These men did not have a crystal ball. All they knew is that democracy and liberty that forefathers fought for them, and they take it. The opponents think that this monument is there to intimidate. This monument, however, was commissioned to paint a Talbot County citizens. Someone was like members of the Talbot boys themselves in a conscious choice in local statute.
30 seconds, Paul, 30 seconds.
The presentation of the flag is extremely important to the state of organization. Flag on the left side, lower, and held tight to staff is a symbol of submission, which only presented in the manner of ceremony of surrender. I ask that this monument, by private funds, as a third symbol removed and rededicated to the men of Talbot County who rose against the oppression that they witnessed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next caller?
Our next caller is Dennis.
Okay.
Begin.
Hi, my name is Denise Lombard. I live on Tilden Island, and I want to begin my remarks by noting that last Wednesday, the U.S. House of Representatives voted to approve legislation to remove 4 Confederate statues from the Capitol Rotunda. It was approved, and it's 305 to 113 votes. All of the no votes came from GOP lawmakers. 72 Republicans voted to remove the statues. Of course, Andy Harris, our congressperson for District 1, voted to keep the Confederate statue. I rise tonight to implore you to remove the Confederate statue from the public lands of the county courthouse without delay. The issue is about dismantling racism, pure and simple. At this point in history, we are called upon again, after the Civil Rights Movement, as a society, especially white people, to confront the reality of systemic racial injustice and white privilege and supremacy with clear eyes and open mind and heart. Let us remember what has happened on this public site, which is dedicated to adjudicating justice. Enslaved human beings were bought and sold to the highest bidder at auction here, HEREIN County Apart. Frederick Douglass was jailed for a week for attempting to escape and daily taunted by slave traders with the prospect of being sold to Georgia or Florida. 2,000 white people formed a mob with ropes and knives and pinned on lynching Isaiah Fountain on the first day of his trial, just 6 years after the erection of the Confederate statue. Eventually, Mr. Fountain was wrongfully convicted and hung on a gallows in the South County Jail. This happened 100 years ago, last Thursday. I call that illegal lynching. That tells us how many white people felt about black people and the racial hatred and terror that they perpetrated around the time the statue was erected. Daniel Padilio's excellent and well-researched article in last Sunday's Star Democrat about Isaiah Fountain tells the whole story. There is a through line that runs through our country, and specifically this county of Talbot County, from slavery, lynching, and Jim Crow.
20 seconds.
Through today's injustices and inequities. Removing the Confederate statue from the courthouse lawn will send a message that Talbot County aspires to correct
10.
racial inequities in its policies and set its tone of creating a new identity
5.
that we are a community committed to taking action to cure inequity for all.
Thank you, Denise. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Our next caller, representing himself, is a William. Please begin.
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to y'all just need to just leave that statue where that one. It's almost just like going to a cemetery, tearing somebody else's tombstone down. I mean, people are dead, let them rest in peace. And, the statue don't hurt nobody. I mean, even Bob, Utah, County, Easton, they don't look at that statue. They just keep on going down the road. Just keep on. They won't make any of those. We're going to be doing a Caroline County turn and then shut the road down because George Washington right there. Next thing, just be going on and on and on. I just wish that our group just needed to be left alone. That's all I need to say.
Okay, thank you very much, caller.
Our next caller, representing themselves, Allison. Time begins.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening, council members. My name is Allison Sandberg, and I live in Easton. I am calling in this evening to ask you to vote to take down the Talbot Building statue in its entirety. And in my opinion, discussions about where it would go or what, if anything, would replace it are distractions. First and foremost, we need to take it down. In my opinion, many of us here on the Eastern Shore live in a bubble, and we tend to form our opinions based on our view from inside that bubble. For the sake of our future, we all desperately need to break out of this bubble so that we can see more clearly. This is the fact. things are changing across our country. And one result of this change is that Confederate memorials are coming down. This is not an attempt to forget history. History is not that fragile. The past is permanent. Instead, these statues are coming down due to a growing acknowledgement that the most shameful parts of our past should not be honored and glorified. Mississippi bore the Confederate symbol on its flag since 1894. It flew for 126 years. It seems that legislators were never going to change their minds. That flag was never coming down. Despite decades of effort, it was never going to happen. Until it did. On June 29th. And closer to home, on June 12th, a plaque in honor of Confederate generals was removed from the lawn of the old Mycomical Courthouse in Salisbury. So in closing, in regard to the Talbot Boyd session, I ask those of you who appear to either oppose its removal or are uncertain of your position, Councilmember Callahan, Councilmember DeVillio, Councilmember Price, search your heart, search your mind. Why
20 seconds.
on earth would you choose to double down on the ugliness that this statue represents when instead you
10
can
seconds.
come down on what will most assuredly be the right side of history? Thank you.
Thank you, caller.
116 people in the call, 15 more queued. Our next caller is a Tara.
Tara, okay.
Please begin.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Tara. I've heard all the previous arguments that I'm getting to this really simple. I'm calling for the complete removal of the Talbot Boyd statue. This is the only acceptable solution. The statue commemorates soldiers that fought a war to enslave black bodies. As a white woman, it is not up to me to say if the statue is offensive. What I must do is listen to the thoughts and feelings of black people, and I would ask you to do the same. In 2020, black citizens of Talbot County are telling you that they find the statue offensive. That should be all you need to hear to have it removed. A statue that memorializes anyone for whatever reason that fought to enslave another human being does not belong on the courthouse lawn. It is past time to remove the statue, and I ask that you please do not continue to delay the vote. This is not an issue that's going away, and we don't plan on stopping. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next caller is a Larrier. Please begin.
Yes, good evening. This is Matthew for leadership and for everyone that's out. I consider myself a Talbot preliminary walker. I'm from here. This is my home. I would start by saying that tonight, and I am a military veteran, I would say you not separate the tactics on the fought from what they fought for. If I can, I want you to comment on this discussion for history in World War II. You know, we could argue with that as a good leader based on his tactics against great fast and Russians. You know, soldiers that fought for them could say that he was a good leader. But I ask you, what did he stand for? And the atrocities that we know are true today are not true. And so I ask you, where in Germany, for those who didn't, might correct me if I'm wrong, where in Germany are the statues memorials of Hitler for the Nazis? And I would say there are not public grounds anyway. There is, for a fact, in Stuttgart, Germany, a monument called Rubble Hill, which serves as a monument to future generations to remember not to allow some to go down such a destructive path. To the African Americans and others who fought the boys of youth, like Hitler and the Nazis, if the family wants to support or remember them, we will respect for fighting they can do so. Do so on private property. But in a courthouse property in the county, like Talbot, where slaves like Frederick Douglass were persecuted by people like the Talbot, how in 2020 can we allow that? You can't centralize that we're not ready to move forward. And to leadership today, if we are to be leaders for future generations, then leadership dictates that we move the monument and the further thought and to tell the whole story and more effectively on the battlefield or the historical field. And I leave you with a LinkedIn to capture the attitude at the time, in history. And it's not really for today, it's all the time that we can perpetuate prosperity, the greatest free government that we have enjoyed all our lives.
20 seconds.
I beg you to remember this, not merely for my sake, but for yours. I have temporarily occupied the big lighthouse. I am a living witness at any
10 seconds.
children, because we come here at my father's time. It is important that each of you may have this free government that we have enjoyed. And open field.
Time.
Thank you, caller, for calling in. Thank you.
Our next caller identifies himself representing the group petition leader, Henry. Please begin.
Can you speak a little louder, please, Henry?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
That's better, thank you.
Okay. I sent my post statement earlier, and I know that you guys will have a copy of it. My fellow Marylanders, I come before you once again to plead that the Talbot statue remains entirely taken down. I've dedicated many hours to fight for someone who I was important. I tried to be brief because most of my thoughts have already been made clear by my previous statements. The statue of false property stands as a lasting reminder that Talbot County still clings to the ideals of Confederacy. Talbot County has already voted not once but twice to leave the statue in place. This is not a new issue, despite it being new, because again, people in the country have decided to take a stand. Why, and what is supposed to be the greatest country in the world, do we require horrible acts of racism before we take action? What does the statute actually mean? That is one of the main questions that causes the most argument. People who argue for the statute to remain standing believe that it represents history, it represents the veterans of the country, of the county, and the old ideas of a full better time. They argue that the statute must stay on county grounds, but we do not forget our history. They also argue that it honors those who fought against what they label as the tyranny of an unconstitutional act by then President Lincoln. People will argue that the statute does not stand as a stark reminder of racism and slavery. That Talbot County does not have problems with diversity or racism. That reaction to the same issue is not worth counsel's time. This is where I find my biggest issue. Any of you who want the statute to stay, have you really spoken to people of color here in Maryland and Talbot County? The 585 signatures I've collected from people in Easton, along with 1,017 other signatures from others in Maryland, and 947 elsewhere in the country indicate that we do not agree with the arguments to justify leaving the statue up. We stand and say that the statute represents something far worse. We can argue whether monument stands for history, stands for protection of slavery, or stands for those against tyranny, but this has been done many times. It has been widely accepted by history that the main cause of the Civil War was whether the states had the right to maintain slavery. Historians also know that these statues were erected around the country to send a message that whites were superior race. There's been numerous papers, books, and other literature to prove that a small minority has argued that this is not the case, but the vast majority of historians has proven it time and time again. This is not the conversation that we should get bogged down with. The most important statement to be made here is that there's still rampant racism and injustice in Talbot County. The most recent meetings with the county school board, which is the tip of the iceberg, the dozens of blatantly racist comments that I heard from myself and others by citizens of Talbot County is shameful. We can even imagine the minorities in Talbot County on a daily basis. Those who wish to keep the statue up have expressed it as a beacon of hope, something that helps them remember our
full time in Talbot County, one in which minorities have buried in wet. Will this statute change policies involving Talbot County? No. The statute begins to change the attitude to those within the county. I wholeheartedly say yes. How can I say this? Because at the end of the day, the county says so, and dozens of citizens that I spoke with all agree that this sin will be the scourge of their county. God has commanded that we love one another as we love ourselves. Let us take a step and put ourselves in someone else's shoes. Someone who has been persecuted for the color of skin, religion, or any other reason, and absolutely not. Stand up to minorities in your community. They can beg for you to listen. Take it down. Thank you.
Thank you. And we do have your folder with those signatures on it, and we'll certainly put that in the record. And just want to note for the record, we did also receive a video from a group in the name of We Are Talbot.
I am Talbot.
I am Talbot County. The video was about 15 minutes long, and just for the sake of time, we're not going to be showing the video. But those persons who participated in the making of that We Are Talbot County, am I saying that correctly? I am Talbot County video. We did receive it. We do have it. Council will get a copy of it in Granicus, but just for the sake of time, we will not be showing that video this evening, but we did receive it.
Mm-hmm.
Our next speaker representing themselves is Sunyata. Please begin.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Frederick Douglass, famous abolitionist and skilled writer, was born into slavery in Talbot County. Talbot County has no trouble honoring Douglass, but at the same time upholds a racist Talbot boys Confederate statue on the courthouse green. It is insulting to the legacy of Frederick Douglass to have these two statues stand side by side. The Talbot statue has never been ethical. Shame on Talbot County to allow this monument to stand that honors the 84 racist soldiers that defended the right of Southern whites to own Black Americans' property. The defense of the statue is an absolute defense of overt and systemic racism. The Talbot statue is the last Confederate statue standing in Maryland. There is no reason for Talbot County to protect and uphold the statue. Talbot County should welcome everyone. I am embarrassed to say that I am from the Eastern Shore because of things like the Talbot statue. There is no reason it should be 100 years behind the rest of Maryland. I demand that council members take a step towards the future and remove the abhorrent statue in its entirety. And I'd also like to clarify a few things. I don't know what other people were taught in school when they attended, but the consensus in higher education all across the United States is that the Confederate States of America was fighting for the rights of states to own slaves. Don't try and argue that to appease your white guilt and need for rationalism that actually erases the reality of history. This statue does hurt people. And this statue will come down eventually. The movement has started and will not be able to ignore it or brush it under the rug as we've done in the past. The passion is there, and rest assured it will happen. I urge you council members to think about the legacy you want to leave in Talbot County. You have the opportunity to make real, positive change. Remove the statue in its entirety. Black Lives Matter. Thank you.
You call it.
Our next caller representing themselves is a Linda. Please begin.
Hello, and thank you for the council. My name is Linda Meredith. I'm third generation Talbot County. Not outside like a lot of these people. This is a county matter, not a national matter. To a point. My question is, why now be fair? If you're going to take one statue down, take them all down. Any of them. Put it in the park, across the street, or the cemetery, or whatever. Frederick Douglass was great, yes, but it's also offending a lot of other people. It's not just one statue, there are two sides to this. The Talbot boys, yes, it needs to come down, but it doesn't represent slaveholders. They were farmers protecting their land. And I'll leave that at that because it's going to be an argument. It's part of our history. Good or bad, it's still part of our history. And we're being blamed for what happened 100 years ago.
to had to do with slavery. It just never crossed my mind. There was a monument to young men who were fighting to preserve their farms and their land. Just be fair and take all the statues out. It's public land, don't put any of them there. Put them in a monument park or something. I know it sounds silly, move them across the street. Thank you.
Thank you, caller.
Our next caller representing Talbot County NAACP is Richard. Please begin.
Good evening, Council President Pack and the other honorable council members. Dr. King stated that the time is always right to do the right thing. Tonight, we are once again here expressing our concern for the removal of the Confederate monument known as the Talbot Board and sit on the courthouse lawn. We, the members of the NAACP Talbot County branch in 2015, addressed this issue with you, and our recommendations still remain the same. One, to remove the entire monument from the courthouse lawn, and two, to commission a group of citizens who can legally discuss the creation of a new monument that is dedicated to the Civil War to include the Union soldiers. It has been 5 long years that this issue has plagued our county, and the time is right now. This monument in its present form sends a message of hate, bigotry, for a particular group of people in our community. This message is in complete contrast of the true representation of a courthouse. A courthouse is there and is supposed to be a place where all community constituents can come and seek a fair and just trial. This monument does not send that message. Your most recent approval of the county needing a diversity statement is a step in the right direction. But to have this monument continuing to linger in the shadows of the courthouse, again, is in direct opposition of your approval of a diversity statement. As we continue to build as inclusive and our beloved community, we can no longer have messages of hate anywhere in our community. It is this reason that, again, we, the members of the NAACP, recommend that you remove this monument known as the Talbot Board in its entirety, and that you do it without delay. We're asking that you vote on this issue tonight. As I close, I leave you with the words of one of the most prolific poets of our time, James Baldwin. And Baldwin stated, how much longer do we have to wait? My great-grandmother waited, my grandmother waited, and my mother waited. How much longer do we have to wait? We have waited long enough. The time is always right to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, caller.
Our next caller is Alexander. Please begin.
Hello, my name is Alexander Bond, and I am a lifelong resident of Talbot County. There are 84 names on the Talbot Boys Monument. Many times that number of citizens of Talbot County fought for the Union. It so happens that about 10% of the names on that monument are members of my family. I believe that it is time to remove the Talbot Boys from the courthouse lawn. I think that it has become, if it ever was not, a symbol that shows that we are representing racism in our community, and it is time to go. I would love to see the leaders of our county make that statement clearly to ourselves and the world around us that Talbot County does not hold racism as a central tenet. That's what I have to say.
Thank you, caller.
Okay, we have 105 callers, in 6 of them queued to speak. Our next caller is a Hannah. Please begin.
Hi, my name is Hannah Baraja. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm the host of The Racing, a local talk show here in Talbot County. I'm also a resident of Talbot County. We're all well aware that the removal of Confederate monuments has been ongoing for decades in the U.S. It is a shame that despite the Charleston church shooting, the Unite the Right Valley, and the killing of George Floyd, it's still not enough justification to remove a statute that does nothing but glorify white supremacy and memorializes an unrecognized government whose founding principle was the perpetuation of slavery, period. It will be shameful of me to not speak up against this clearly racist monument. It will be even more shameful for the county council members to not listen to the community of people that have been oppressed and affected by racism to this very day. I reiterate that each individual that stands for Confederate ideology is racist. If the statute prevails, it is only a symbol that racism will also prevail. I ask that the entire monument be taken down now, and by now I mean it should be voted on no later than tonight. It has been on the very grounds where justice is served for far too long. Thank you.
Thank you, caller.
Our next caller, representing themselves, is a Robin. Please begin.
Hello, my name is Robin, and I'm a resident of Easton. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. It is time tonight for the council to step up, all members vote, to promptly remove the Talbot Floyd statue, including this. The statue is not a balanced representation of the Civil War. Missing are the names and images of the Union soldiers. Missing is a tribute to those thousands of people ripped from their country, beaten, chained, raped, separated from their families, sold as property on our courthouse property, all under slavery. Quoting some Republican leaders in Mississippi as they voted to remove Confederate statues. We are not disregarding our heritage. We're not ignoring the past. But we are embracing the future here. And final comment from one of the Mississippi legislators. This is not a political moment to me, but a solemn occasion to lead our county families to come together and move on. Stand together and vote tonight to lead Talbot County forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next caller, representing themselves, is Judy. Please begin.
Good evening, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
My name is Judy Winston, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak. I think we know that it is time to act, because when the idea to produce a video of residents requesting the Confederate monument be removed, 55 citizens who love our county stepped forward within a 48-hour period. Councilman Pat has already spoken to the video that we sent today, so you do have that, and it was also sent to the public comment email. Tonight, you, our elected officials, have an opportunity to correct an injustice perpetrated upon the African American citizens of our county decades after the Civil War ended, and to begin a healing process in our community. The original sin of slavery and racism continues to poison the very air we breathe, because we have learned a mythical lost cause narrative that this monument represents. The words of the Broadway show Hamilton have been playing in my mind for weeks. History has its eyes on you. We can rewrite the narrative of the mythical lost cause and remove the entire Confederate monument from our county courthouse lawn. Further, respectfully, please vote on this tonight. We want to move forward. We are ready to move forward to build a better, stronger Talbot County that celebrates the strength of our diverse population. Thank you.
Thank you. And it is a great song. Next caller.
Our next caller is an Ari. Please begin.
Hello?
Yes, we can make you, if you wouldn't mind speaking up just a little bit more, Ari.
What?
If you wouldn't mind speaking up just a little bit more, please.
Okay.
Okay. We're ready.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I just wanted to say, this issue is the supervisor for so many other problems. And the fact is that taking out the stuff is, again, it's the tip of the iceberg. You're not even asking me to do the police system. You're not even asking me to change the county library code to not to wash. You're not even asking me to invest in the black community. This is the bare minimum. The bare minimum. And it's sad. I mean, you guys can't even vote on this to remove this racist action. We're so proud of you. Also, to do some other comments made. President Douglas and Talbot are two totally different statutes that stand for totally different things. President Douglas stands for American ideals and values of fighting for freedom. The Talbot stands for against them, as they, again, represent slavery, which is not freedom. So, to say at least to get rid of both is totally ridiculous. Also, to go on another point of statement, I am Jewish myself. And when I was in Germany, all I saw were Jews in as many hands, honoring all the Jews that were to die. And I didn't know how I'm not in Germany with the memorials of Hitler all around. And it's soldiers and fought. So I can imagine what black people feel walking down the street and seeing the Talbot boy statue. Especially their symbolizing being crushed of them. That's really this today. Thank you.
Thank you, caller.
And if there are written comments, Mr. Pack, we would really appreciate receiving them.
Yes, again, if you have written statements, we would appreciate you mailing them in to us in 11 North Washington Street here in Easton, and you can direct that to the county manager's office. We would appreciate those written comments. Thank you.
7 callers remain in the queue. Our next caller is Emily. Please begin.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Before I start, I would like to actually echo the sentiments of everyone before me who expressed their wishes to remove the statue. In listening tonight, the principal argument I've heard in favor of keeping the statue is that we need to protect and illuminate our history. If this ends up being the council's goal and they vote to keep the statue for this reason, then why would you also cut funding for the Historical Preservation Commission? Or why would you not allocate money to fully fund the county public schools? Because that's the thing. It would be fully hypocritical to argue that you are just enablers of historical preservation if in the same breath you are not investing in the pre-established vessels that Talbot County has to educate our citizens about the past. If you do not vote to remove the entire statute, it would be transparent that your issues do not lie in educating our community, but in defending a monument to racism. Maybe it is your understanding of community historic education that is the reason as to why some people are trying to relitigate the issues of the Civil War. But let it be clear, oppressors do not deserve sob stories as to why they were driven to enslave and take treasonous actions against the United States. It does not matter if they were just young boys who wanted to fight or they were taking action to join the rest of their community. They were white supremacists who fought to keep slaves, and they do not deserve a participation trophy for losing a war. Take the entire statue down. Black Lives Matter. Thank you.
Thank you, caller.
Our next caller, representing themselves, is a Keith. Please begin.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Pretty good.
Who's on the timer? Would that be Vice President Callahan or Chief Leo, whoever that is? You will go ahead and start the clock.
It started.
Give that up, take the first 104 seconds.
Yes, the clock has already started. The clock has started, sir.
Good. I'd like to take the first 104 seconds to a moment of silence. That's the time this statue has stood in Talbot County. I also sent a picture. I hope that's up on the screen. I want you to look at that picture during this moment of silence of 104 seconds of the Talbot slave market, please.
Carla, we are not projecting a picture at this time, so if you want to just go ahead with your comments, we would appreciate it.
Well, I think it's important that we realize that that statue stands on hallowed ground. Mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, grandmothers, grandfathers, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, cousins, sold on the very spot that statue stands. That picture was sent earlier. It should be shown to this entire proceeding because those people have no voice now. And they need to be heard down to the ages. The ones who were torn from their mothers and fathers, their sisters and brothers, the ones they would never see again. Gentlepersons, councilpersons, councilwomen, the weight of history is on you tonight. The eyes of the nation and the world are on you tonight. I would urge you to vote tonight. If Mississippi could do this, Talbot County can do this.
20 seconds.
And we can move on. I need my time.
Thank you, caller.
Our next caller representing themselves is Patrick. Please begin.
Hi there. My name is Patrick Burke, and I am a fourth-generation resident of Trapp, Maryland. I would first like to express my truly sincere admiration for all of the young voices that are dominating this conversation this evening and really leading the movement of the past few months. You're fighting your fight, getting into good trouble, and delayed conscience of the consequences for seven, and killing the myth of the apathetic inverter. Not to mention keeping the county council up late past the bedtime, which I'm always a fan of. I believe that county eloquence is performing at least me really the need to go to my own speech, so I'll be free. I implore you to remove this statute in its entirety from the county courthouse. We must also focus on the actual policies that perpetuate systemic racism. I encourage listeners tonight to read the racial history of property tax, for example, a key issue in Talbot County, and take this everyday commitment to equity when policies like these are on the ballot in November. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller.
4 callers remain in the queue. Our next caller is representing the self. Andrew, please begin.
Council members Corey Pack, Chuck Callahan, Frankie Video, Pete Gusher, Lauren Price. I'm speaking to you because you're facing a time of social unrest and more unarmed black men and women are being killed by white supremacists and those who have sworn to protect and serve. Unfortunately, Talbot County is not excluded from these issues. Today, we are still facing racism in this county, which is glorified in our very own county courthouse. Located on county courthouse grounds is Talbot Wood Monument, in which a run ride from Fairfield to Talbot County. The construction of this monument is a vital because of what it stands for and symbolize. Confederacy was created solely for southern states to continue to exploit African Americans and use their forced labor for economic gain. Although many Talbot County natives have ancestors who fought for Confederacy, that shouldn't be a reason for keeping a monument that glorifies and normalizes a government that went to keep African Americans as slaves. Not only is the modern to African American community in Talbot County, but also plans to building treason in the United States. The people of the Confederacy did not want to be part of the United States. The United States, the country that we love, praise, and celebrate today, is not the country that the Confederate soldiers wanted to be a part of and would have been a part of. They would have been a part of if the Confederacy won. If you want to praise and normalize the Confederacy, what does that say about your patriotism and love for the United States? Yes, we should recognize both sides, and yes, the Confederacy should not be forgotten, because unfortunately, it is a part of our history. But the Confederacy should not be glorified, and that's the Talbot Board Monument does. The Oxford Dictionary states that a monument is a statue, building, or other structure directed to commemorate a famous or noble person or event. Are treason, oppression, and slavery essentially should commemorate? There's a reason why Germany doesn't have any Nazi-based monuments on public ground in the country. Why should the United States be any different? The Talbot Monument wasn't built to provide history to the public. The monument was built to be a symbol of oppression for the black Talbot County residents. Hence why it was built during the Jim Crow era. This matter isn't a both sides argument. Racism should never be a both sides topic. This isn't white versus black. It is racist versus non-racist. If you have Confederate ancestors, why would you want to embrace the people that have done everything they could to prevent me from being considered human? As a black Talbot County native, it really concerns me that it's been this difficult to try to remove monuments that symbolize oppression for only Talbot County natives. This is the first time the removal of the monument
20 seconds.
has been discussed, but I hope this is the last. I really want each of you to truly think hard on what this could mean if this monument is removed. And the message you're sending to black Talbot County
10
natives
seconds.
if this monument stays. I'm speaking not to condemn you or show any hatred towards you. I am speaking because I have hope. We've evolved and have
Time.
a representation, but we still have a lot of work to do. And we will continue to grow. The question now is, what side of history do you want to be a part of? Thank you.
Thank you, caller.
Our next caller representing themselves is a Bill. Please begin.
President Pack and members of the council, my name is Bill Anderson. I was not born and raised in Talbot County. I was born in Richmond, Virginia, and raised a little bit further south than that. Yet I grew up in the South and was from an early age steeped in the ways of the Confederacy. I remember that by the time I was 6, I had been schooled in how to start gaining spies some 80 years after the end of the Civil War. I went to school, public schools in North Carolina, and only later did I come to realize that the textbooks that we used bore the hands of the indelible hands of the United Daughters of the Confederacy. And they perpetrated the myth of the lost cause and the graciousness of life in the South, and how that was worthy, the way of life built upon slavery was something that was worth protecting and defending. I have since come to realize that it was a myth, and that the perpetuation of monuments like the Talbot Boys statue on the courthouse grounds is wholly inappropriate. To me now, from where I am, it looks to me like it's a badge of slavery intended to suggest to the African American community that there is not equal protection of the laws awaiting them in the Talbot County Courthouse, but something that has shadows from the fight to protect slavery during the Civil War. The flag that is borne by the Talbot Boy statue is unmistakably the battle flag of the Army of Northern Virginia for the Confederate States of America. In my view, it is way past time to remove the monument and the base from the courthouse grounds. It has no place there, in my opinion. I urge you to vote to remove the Talbot Boy statue and its base as soon as possible. as stated in Mr. Ledger's amendment to the proposed resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, caller.
Our next caller, representing themselves, is a Cleve. Please begin.
Hi, this is Clive Ewing from Easton, and I speak in opposition to Resolution 290. And I do object that this resolution was materially changed at the very last moment, and it was not a simple cleanup of the language. With that said, the resolution itself, the resolution states that some people consider the monument as a racist symbol, presumably pointing to that Confederate flag that is formed into the statue. But according to nonpartisan authorities, like the Anti-Defamation League, it says, quote, one should not automatically assume that the display of the Confederate flag is racist or white supremacist in nature. The symbol should only be judged in context, unquote. I suggest, in the context of the Talbot monument, the flag is merely identifying the colors under which these boys fought. Unlike South Carolina and Mississippi, this flag is not waving over government property. Now, to rationalize the removal of the statue, this resolution guided us to compare the Talbot Boys Monument to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial versus the Wall in Washington, D.C. I would like to offer some additional perspectives from that guidance you have suggested. Resolution 290 says the wall, quote, is one of the most powerful monuments of military action in the U.S. And likewise, the resolution states that the Talbot Boys Monument is dedicated to the, quote, Confederate cause. These two statements are incorrect, and they are the root of this flawed resolution. Both the wall and the Talbot Boys Monument are dedicated to the war fighters, not to the wars. They are dedicated to the person, not to the event or the culprits. If there is any doubt about the intent of the monument and the courthouse, I can link the quote to read the inscription to the Talbot Boys. Denying the Talbot Boys a place of honor at the Talbot County Courthouse will be akin to denying our Vietnam vets their monument on the National Mall, which is, in fact, almost what happened as our nation grappled with a difficult memory. Yes, the Confederacy discharged the waging of morally corrupt war. And yet, America is charged for waging an equally corrupt war in Vietnam.
20 seconds.
But we as a community, as a nation, have a long-standing principle that even if you can't support the war, you can still support and honor
10 seconds.
soldiers who fought. When the community asks war fighters to engage in battle, we must promise these soldiers that their sacrifices will be honored, whether the conflict is won or lost, and no matter how history might ultimately judge the war itself. It is a citizen's promise to a soldier.
Thank you, Clyde. Thank you, Clyde. Thank you, caller.
Our last caller queued to speak is Adina. Please begin.
Good evening, Talbot County Council members. My name is Dina Daly, and I'm a Talbot County resident and have been for many years. My husband and I started the AIM program in 2005 with the hope to address the many disparities, whether it's social, educational, economical, racial, health, that affect many in the African American community. For the past 15 years, we have developed a strong program and have seen results. However, more work is needed, and these disparities have been systematically instituted in all policies and practice throughout every institution, whether governmental or private. These practices have been instituted to ensure that people of color do not enjoy the same privileges as white Americans. I'm writing you that we are facing social unrest in our country due to the many killings of black men and women. The unrest has been part of the American history since men, women, and children were brought to this country and enslaved. But many in this country have fought and lost their lives to ensure that this country is right and strong. No one should be treated as less than human, and any effort to dehumanize individuals or any group should be stopped. For me, this is why Black Lives Matter is really important that I agree. The American Civil War was fought in 1861 when Southern states formed the Confederate States of America and fought against the Union to preserve slavery. Again, these states fought to preserve slavery. Following the Civil War, government slavery was abolished with the passage of the 13th Amendment in 1865. These states are not happy with the right given to free black people. This was when the Jim Crow era began. Laws were passed and enforced to ensure that blacks did not enjoy or partake in the same privileges as white Americans. Many African-American boys and men were arrested for minor offenses, incarcerated, and provided free labor as reparations. Many were also murdered for nothing more than being black. The perpetrators were protected under the law, and in fact, many of these actions were perpetrated by those in uniform, those who were served to protect us, our police officers. Now, the public voice monument was not erected until
20 seconds.
1816, more than half a century later. What does this tell us? The message to us is that we are not equal.
10 seconds.
That entry to courthouse is not going to be treated as the same as any other individual. We tell them on federal society that
Time.
people to maintain race is alive and well in public terms. So if you vote to keep this monument in the courthouse, once again you are telling us, the black community, and to many studies of President
Thank you, caller, for calling in. Thank you.
There are currently 100 people in the call. There are no callers left queued.
Thank you very much, Mr. Durham, for handling that. I know that was somewhat of a task, and you did a yeoman's job at keeping us straight here. By my count, we had 32 callers this evening, and I'll check one more time with Mr. Durham just to make sure that no one is jumping onto the line late to speak to us.
Currently 97 callers participating, 0 in the queue.
Okay. Council, at this time, unless there's any objection, I'm going to call a close to the public hearing on Resolution 290. Okay, the resolution is closed. On 290, I will, if I may, I will ask that those callers who had prepared statements again one more time, if you wouldn't mind sending those statements in to us at 11 North Washington Street, put those to the attention of the county manager, and that way we'll have those written statements as part of our official record before council considers final vote on this matter. There has been an amendment that was introduced. I'm not going to ask council to vote on the amendment tonight. We'll certainly take that up at the next meeting to vote on the amendment unless there is a motion to do so. The chair would entertain so. Okay. With that being said, the amendment to Resolution 290 will stand until the next meeting for final vote. This matter will be picked back up for final vote on August the 11th. August the 11th will be the final vote on 290. Okay.
Mr. Pack, how long do you want to keep public comment open on that? Do you want to wait?
The public hearing is closed as of tonight. We want those letters to come in to us that they read from.
Nice.
So we want them to send that in to us.
Okay.
Because some of them were hard for her to get. So.
Certainly.
So I think what Mr. DeVilli is getting at is I know we still get comments after the formal record is closed, but I would ask if we can set that closing date for, instead of noon Friday, or the following Friday, the 7th.
Oh, that, okay. Well, we can certainly take those written comments up until Friday of the, that would be the 9th? No.
The 7th.
The 7th? Okay. Friday of the 7th for any additional written comment outside of those that we were asked from the callers this evening. So we'll take then any additional written comment up until the 7th, close of business on the 7th of August. Okay?
Sounds good. Thanks.
All right, and the next matter for introduction is administrative resolution, and this is dealing with Maryland Environmental Services for refund of their bond. And I don't know if Ms. Lane is here, but Madam Secretary, here for you for the reading of the title.
Administrative resolution refunding by the Maryland Environmental Service of its revenue bonds, Midshore 2 Regional Landfill Project Series 2011. An administrative resolution for the purpose of acknowledgement and acceptance by the County Council of Talbot County, Maryland, the county, of the issuance by the Maryland Environmental Service, the service of refunding bonds to refund in whole or in part its outstanding revenue bonds, Midshore 2 Regional Landfill Project, Series 2011, the Series 2011 bonds, acknowledging the county's continuing obligations under the existing waste disposal service agreement, the service agreement between the service and the county, and as described herein. Authorizing the approval, execution, and delivery of any additional documents, certificates, or instruments related to the contemplated refunding, including continuing disclosure agreement and generally relating to the refunding of Series 2011 bonds and the service agreement.
Okay, thank you, Madam Secretary. Mr. Cooper-Smith, are you speaking to this, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, this is in effect a refinance to take advantage of historically low interest rates. Going back to 2011, Maryland Environmental Service issued debt to help pay for the Midshore Region 2 landfill in Caroline County. Talbot County is part of a Midshore agreement with the other Midshore counties for the operation of these landfills. And so Maryland Environmental Service approached us recently asking us to adopt this resolution tonight, which is the first step for Talbot County to assist with this refinancing of up to $12 million of these refunding bonds. And we would go to closing on this refunding probably sometime in August, according to Maryland Environmental Service.
Mr. Cooper, do you know whether or not the other counties have already approved the refinancing?
I don't know if they've already done it, but I'm told by the bond council that all of the other Midshore counties are adopting the same resolution.
Right. But we don't know whether they have taken action yet. Okay.
But they did ask that this be adopted today.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely, absolutely. Any questions of Mr. Cooper? So this is a refinancing of the bond for Maryland Environmental Services, excuse me. Sometimes this thing sucks back into my mouth. This is a refinancing of their bond. So is there any additional question of Mr. Cooper-Smith at this time? Okay. The chair would ask for a show of hands for introduction of the administrative resolution this evening. Mrs. Price, are you still online with us?
Yes, I'm still here. I am.
Okay. It's by council, Madam Secretary. As this is an administrative resolution, Mr. Cooper-Smith did explain that all of the participating counties must approve the resolution for refinancing of the bond debt. The chair would entertain a motion to move this to vote tonight.
So moved.
Second it.
Mr. Billy, second by Mr. Callahan. Any further discussion on the matter? Hear my voice come back at me. Hearing none, Madam Secretary, please call your roll.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Okay, so we're on the record as being...
Mr. Lesher?
Aye. I'm sorry, I got out of place here. So we're now on the record as being approving for the bond refinancing, so hopefully that Caroline, Kent, and Queen Anne will follow suit. Dorchester's not involved in this, I believe. Is that Dorchester also? No, not Dorchester, right. So Kent, Queen Anne, and Caroline.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Hollis, I'm going to kick it over to you for the rest of the evening.
2 items, Mr. President. First is to request your approval for the Sheriff's Office to purchase 5 mobile data computers. Total cost $23,315, of which there are sufficient funds in their current budget, and the purchase will be made off of a state contract.
Okay. Chair would entertain a motion for the purchase of the mobile data computers for the Sheriff's Office.
So moved.
Moved by Mr.
Second it.
Mr. DeVillio.
Yes.
Second by Mr. Callahan. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, please call your roll.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Matter, second matter.
So final item, Mr. President, is to request approval to send a letter to our federal delegation seeking their assistance to pay for a Section 107 study. This involves the Knapps Narrows Back in early 2000, perhaps 2007, the Corps placed geotubes full of silt as part of the the second to last effort to dredge the channel. Some of those tubes have ruptured. That silt is filling back in what was just dredged. The Corps is now telling us that we would have to be a 50% partner on doing any study to show what's occurring. Talbot County accepts absolutely no responsibility for the poor choice of geotubes as a containment facility, and we'd like to ask the federal delegation to have the federal level pay for the entire study, so we can get it opened up again.
You're talking about just a waste of money, you know, to put these tubes in, they rupture, and now we got to pay 50% of the study.
Correct. It's frustrating that we even have to have a study, but we do.
Right, right.
You all know how hard you worked in the delegation work to get it dredged.
To get it dredged to begin with, and the poor fishermen and watermen down at Knapps Narrows are now facing the same thing that we took care of how many years ago? Was that 4 years ago for the dredging? 4 years ago?
A little, maybe less.
Yeah. So now we're right back at where we started from. Okay, Chair would entertain a motion to go ahead and request for the assistance.
So move.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lesh. I'm losing my voice here this evening.
Second.
Second by Mr. DeVillio. Any further discussion?
Question, Mr. Pack.
Yes.
So you are coming up for 50% or not?
Laura, you're going to have to either get closer to your phone because you kind of faded out there.
Yeah, here's the problem, and yeah, I can't hear very well on the phone. I can hear better on the TV, but there's a delay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So are we on the hook for 50%?
The letter to the delegation. I'm sorry. The letter to the delegation that we're asking for approval would say the Fed should pay 100%, no money on Talbot.
Okay, so we're trying to get it all paid for.
Correct, as we had no responsibility for the cause of the problem.
Whatever material they made these tubes out of has obviously ruptured to get this much silt to fall back into the narrows. And for us to have to pay for a study to basically say what we know happened, there was a major rupture. And now this material is falling right back into where it was just dredged from.
So I would say what we're telling them that we're basically not paying 50%. It's their problem.
I think you're asking them to pay 100%.
Yes.
And if they don't, then we'll come back to you because it's all of our problem.
Okay.
It needs to be addressed.
It's a good letter telling them that they made a mistake, and we want them to.
Right. Oh, I know. Okay.
Yep.
Further discussion? Question, comment? No? Madam Secretary, please call your roll.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye. That's all, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Hollis. That is it, Council. We'll make sure those letters get forwarded. So for council comment, wait where I am, and Mr. Lesher, I'll start with you tomorrow.
Do we do public comment first?
I'm sorry?
Public comment?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Do we have a list of public comment?
No, because
There's no
nobody,
sheet?
one can be here.
Oh, I asked it. Do we have anyone on the phone for public comment?
There are 12 callers on the line, none are queued for comment.
None for comment? Okay. Mr. Lesher?
I should have made this brief note right when we scheduled the vote for August 11th. I spoke to some people. We had several people testifying and asking us to take a vote tonight on the Talbot Boys Monument, and because I want no accusation of this being done rashly or at the last minute, particularly with my amendment to the Talbot Boys. I want the opportunity for the public to have opportunity to further comment on this, to send us those comments. And for those who called for the vote tonight, I simply ask for your patience and keep the end goal in mind. I do believe, I am hopeful that we will get there with this particular issue, with the removal of the monument. And we will do it with adequate public scrutiny and input on this process.
Thank you, Mr. Lesher. Laura, do you have any comments?
No comments this evening, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Villo, do you have any comments?
The only comment I'll have, just for point of clarification, there was a speaker or caller who brought up an article that my brother wrote, Daniel DeVillio. There are a couple of us, so I don't want to make anybody confused over that.
Is that it?
That's it.
Oh, okay. Mr. Callahan.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank all the callers. There's a lot of people that did call in tonight, and it looks like we had 100 and some people on the call, so I really appreciate you spending time with us tonight and voicing your opinions.
Okay, the County Council's next meeting will be held on Tuesday, August the 11th, beginning at 6 p.m. in the Bradley Meeting Room. The council will be convening an open session at 4:30 p.m. and immediately adjourning the closed session to discuss real estate, legal, and personnel matters as stated on the statement for closing the meeting. Madam Secretary, I've reached the end of my agenda. Do you have anything further for us? Hearing none. Council, we are adjourned.